Joining us, senior legal affairs reporter at Politico, Kyle Cheney, and former federal defender, public defender, and former DOJ pardon attorney Liz Oyer. Kyle, this seems nuts.
I mean, as you noted, it's not the first time that we're seeing defendants, sort of both try to rewrite the history of what happened that day, but sort of reassert themselves in the political conversation and the legal conversation. Look, they feel like they are on offense, that they have a president in the White House who has pardoned all of them effectively, and is trying to support their effort to sort of tell a different story about what happened that day, other than the violence and chaos that crowd caused. And so the legal efforts kind of dovetail with that, and they think by suing the federal government over this, that maybe they have a friendly Justice Department that will support them or come to a settlement agreement, as we've seen happen in other scenarios where Trump allies have secured settlements in cases that were once unthinkable.
Could they do this, Liz, if they weren't pardoned?
So this lawsuit really does not have any legs with the pardon or not in normal times. This is a case in which the allegation is that excessive force was used, but that is going to be judged by the standard of a reasonable officer. Did the officers reasonably believe that they needed to use this force in order to disperse this mob of people trying to violently break into the Capitol? I don't think there is any jury that would find that the use of force was not reasonable in this case. But because they have a friendly audience at the Justice Department, these people are trying to essentially pull a fast one and get away with a chunk of change because they know that there's a possibility that DOJ will settle this case out of court. It's exactly what we saw in the case of Ashley Babbitt, who broke into the Capitol and was unfortunately shot and killed by a Capitol police officer. That case was settled out of court by DOJ because they elected to pay her family money, not because there was a belief that that there was actually liability on the part of the police officer who shot her. It's a very high bar to meet that standard in a mob situation like this. So essentially what litigants have discovered here is that they can shake down the Justice Department for a payment out of taxpayer dollars if they are viewed as allies or supporters of the president.
So are there any other officers that were ever found of wrongdoing, Kyle, in the post-January 6 investigations?
So, I mean, no, I haven't seen any sort of finding of misconduct or excessive force or abuse or anything like that. I think the Capitol Police acknowledged that they didn't operate perfectly that day, and in fact made a lot of mistakes. There were issues from the command level on down for how they responded. They had the preparation for what actually came to pass, and whether they made all the right calls in that intense and chaotic environment. But in terms of individual officers, there's been very little I've seen of terms of discipline or certainly excessive force.
There's also some reporting about a pardoned rioter who's heading back to prison. Liz, I hope you can talk to me about this man. Pardoned by President Trump for his actions on January 6th, was sentenced now for possessing more than 100,000 child sexual abuse images and videos discovered in connection with his Capitol riot case. His name's Daniel Tocci. He was sentenced to 4 years. Can we just underscore the lack of scrutiny that was given to each of these individual rioters before they were mass pardoned? Liz?
Yeah, Katie, that's exactly right. There was no individualized vetting done of these individuals to weed out those who had really problematic criminal histories or propensities. And we're seeing that come home to roost now. I did some quick research after I saw the story referenced last night, and I found at least 22 examples of pardoned January 6th rioters who have in their history either sexual exploitation of children, sexual assault of women, or domestic violence, domestic battery, and stalking type offenses. This is an extraordinary number, 22 people, just based on some quick research. So this is not uncommon. There's another pardoned January 6th rioter named Andrew Johnson, who was sentenced earlier this month to life in prison for sexually abusing 2 children and then attempting to bribe the children to stay silent about the abuse. This is part of a really chilling pattern that we're seeing emerging, and it illustrates the dangers of granting pardons to people without any individualized vetting or review.